Welcome back, everyone. Now, when it comes to love and relationships, the often unspoken and overlooked elephant in the room is our sexual experience, and more importantly, our own sexual satisfaction. In the 10 years since I've been coaching with women, I've become increasingly aware of the epidemic of women who really don't feel fully sexually expressed, aren't really fulfilling their deepest desires in the area of sex, and often too shy to know where to go or where to ask for help. And today's guest is definitely blazing a path for women, breaking down the taboos and really normalizing conversations around sex. She's unapologetically willing to talk about anything and making this conversation feel comfortable in order to support you. So you're probably going to learn something today about yourself, about your sexual experience that you might not even have known that you needed to hear. And it's going to be absolutely amazing. So I want to welcome to our session today, Erin, Kyna.
Thank you so much, Peter. I am so excited to be back talking with you. We have an amazing chemistry and I can't wait to see what comes of this conversation.
It's going to be phenomenal. We do need to add a little bit of a disclaimer to
yes, always.
Today, however.
Because it is explicit content, so we want to make sure that anyone that can hear it is actually a consenting adult. So I would suggest listening with headphones or listening in private and making sure that there's no small, young, unsuspecting ears that can hear the content.
Now, we were just actually talking prior to hitting the record button about where do we go to get support with our sexual experience if we feel like there's something that's not living up to our expectations. And there seems to be really not a lot of things that are accessible unless we want to kind of go to some of the extremes. And why is this important for our relationships?
Absolutely. So when I think back to my younger days and what I would have classified as sexual dysfunction, because I was a very sexually shut down person for numerous years. And I inherently knew that I was a sexual person under there somewhere, but it's just like everything's shut off and I have no idea where to go. And I knew that I'd had sexual trauma in my past. And so my first avenue of exploration was through like clinical psychology and seeing a sex therapist, or people might see a psychologist or a sexologist. And that as an avenue can be very well clinical and dry and detached from you and the therapist. Another avenue that many people know to turn towards would be Tantra. Tantra spiritualizes the sexual expression, and for a lot of people that allows them to experience a channel of sexuality that is kind of free of all of the shame and the confusion and the pain and the disgust and of what we see in the world often, that leaves us feeling confused, not good about ourselves, shut down. Maybe, we might have had traumatic experiences. So it's almost in my mind, like Tantra opens up this other channel that says, come and enjoy sexuality this way. And it becomes sacred again. And you don't have to deal with all of that. And I don't deny that that's a pathway for some people. I think that can be a really powerful pathway for some people and they need it that way. Another avenue that we might see is BDSM. So I kind of almost see that as the black and the white. One end of the spectrum, we go towards the light and we make everything spiritual. And in the other, we go into the dungeon, into the darkness. We go and do all the forbidden and the taboo things. For some people, they know that's the pathway for them. And for others, that will trigger the crap out of them, myself included. Early in the day, I was so triggered. I can't even tell you the stuff that brought up for me, because I identified as a spiritual person. So there's these kind of access points, but none of those are necessarily everyday or commonplace. They're kind of those, like you said, extreme ends of the spectrum. So not everyone wants to do those things or feels comfortable perhaps coming here to Bali and doing a Tantra retreat where you have to get naked and stare at each other's between the legs. And, not everyone's going to go into a dungeon and get a dominatrix to chain them to the wall and whip them. But what I know is there's intense healing available in both of those avenues. There's amazing wisdom and information and tools And I feel very blessed that I can access both of those realms and that I'm comfortable in both of those realms. And I can extrapolate that goodness and that healing and the understandings of sexuality and bring that to empower people. Oh, I'm getting the goosebumps now in this modern day experience, just like you and I sitting over coffee, having a conversation in a cafe. And that is using the language that we understand. It's using concepts that we understand. It's actually transforming our sexuality right here, right now, without you needing to change, without you needing to become spiritual, without you needing to become kinky, just who you are as an individual woman, and using this to start to decode and pull back the layers of confusion and misunderstanding and shame and past experiences that stops us from accessing what is innately in us and understanding ourselves as a unique sexual expression. We don't have to look like those things. We don't have to do it the way that anyone else is doing it. I help women understand who they are and how they could be doing it in order to feel satisfied, fulfilled, happy, empowered, turned on by life, like on top of the freaking world, because that's who we are and that's who we were always meant to be.
I think one of the things that I would love to understand more from you, Erin, is for a lot of people, being in a relationship is really important, having that sacred connection, having the commitment and a partner that you can share your future to, but maybe not necessarily placing so much importance on the sexual side of things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if the sex is okay, you know, and when it's relatively healthy, that's often fine for a lot of people. Where you've tapped into is something that, as I mentioned in the intro, a lot of women don't even realize might actually support their experience of both relationships and themselves. Yes. Why is connecting and being fully expressed with our own sexuality, like why is that something that's worth us actually pursuing or putting in any work to improve?
That's such a great question, because it is work. So we need to be motivated to do that work, because it's easy to just stick our head in the sand and say, well, this is fine, this is good enough. But do we want relationships that are just good enough? Like, we're here listening to this content, learning about ourselves, because we want more than that. We want more than what we've been told that we can have. There's some innate knowing inside of us that drives us to say, this isn't it. This model we've been sold of what the modern day marriage with white picket fence and the 2.5 kids, like, that I'm craving something deeper than that. I want to be met more than that. I want to be loved more than that. And maybe some of us even say, I want to be fucked better than that. Maybe some of us don't even realize that yet. But it's a journey, because the world has sold us so many stories that have done us an injustice about what it means to be a sexual woman. But it is an inherent part of who we are. Like, we as women create life on earth in our bodies through our sexuality. It is the most powerful force that we have. We make miracles in our fucking bodies because of sexuality and our sexual energy that we hold within us. So, you know, from a spiritual perspective, we have these chakras in the body, 7 energy centers that have different meanings and have different actual glands and neural centers in the body related to that. They each have a hormone, they each have information in there, so we can bridge the scientific and the spiritual there and actually see the chakras are represented in the physical body. And they move through this rainbow spectrum of light, which is the density of the wave of light, going from red being the slowest and densest wave up to like ultraviolet essentially. So our sexual center as women sits in our lower belly, our sacral chakra. And if you imagine that's like 7 lights that you can turn on that represent how powerful you are and how bright your light shines in the world. Having your light on, bright, radiating who you are out in the world is satisfying. It's what we came here to do. We're each unique like that. We've got something to give. We've got this energy to share. And then imagine that the orange light is just switched off, or it's just flickering on and off. Well, it makes sense that every single part of us wishes to be expressed. It makes sense that we as a soul came to this life for a reason, with a purpose, and we need all of our energy to fulfill to the greatest extent what we came here to do. So at the most simple level, I just see it as, why are we not switching on the orange light? Of course we would. It's very simple like that. Like, just turn on the light. to get there is not so simple. But once that energy is on and the whole system is lit up and all of the energy centers are activated, it amplifies everything. So it's part of our personal power. It's part of our creative life force and serves many, many things far beyond just having sex and feeling some satisfaction in the bedroom, far beyond actually just creating a child. That energy has a purpose in your life that's unique and specific to you. And when you turn it on, there's no going back. It's a joy, a satisfaction, an empowerment, a fulfillment, a nourishment that you'll wonder how you ever lived without it. How did we normalize the sexually shut down woman? You know, one of the things that I'm really averse to is what is the standard for our sex life. One of my assistants sent me an article that was in Mamma Mia and was like, oh, this might be interesting for you. And I can barely remember it now, but there was something like, how do you know that you're having as much sex as average, or something like that? And then when I looked at the statistics, I was like, oh my God, our idea of average is actually shit. It's so poor. And then it's like the blind leading the blind. Well, let me check that my sexual performance and satisfaction is okay based on what you're doing, but none of us are doing it right. So like, if you have sex 2.5 times a week, because that's the average in Australia, that people are having sex 2.5 times a week, it means nothing for your sexual satisfaction. You could be having sex 5 times a week and be deeply unsatisfied. You can have sex once in 6 months and be so fulfilled by that experience. And that can be a sexual experience you have with yourself and with no one else. That's what I'm really passionate about, is that we do not need to outsource. We do not need to sit here waiting for someone to come and give us this experience. We have the potential to have a sexual experience with ourselves that is so profoundly transformative that we will never settle ever again. We will never accept less for ourselves than what we're worth, because why would you do that?
I know that you work with women and help them unlock this sexual expression. And we're going to talk more about that, obviously. What are some of the changes you see in women? Perhaps even give us an example of some of the clients that you work with, the life changes that you see through the power of this work.
It is almost instantaneous when they turn that light on. Like I said, the pathway to get there is very unique and different for all of us and not necessarily easy, but that life force wants to be expressed. It wants to be shared with the world. You and your soul and your spirit wants to be shared with the world. So once you apply yourself to that path, everything you need to get there will be provided for you. And that light comes on and you're looking at a different world. You are operating as a different woman, and you're transformed in a way that you never return from. And I have seen changes in clients in every single area of their life, every single area of their life. I see marriages change like that. I have seen people understanding their purpose and what they're here to do on the planet get reactivated or influenced and amplified like that. I have seen relationships and unhealthy long-term relationships very naturally and easily end because of the recognition of someone's worth and what they want in life. You see it in someone's face. You said it to me just today. I was like, I don't know what you were doing on Instagram yesterday, Erin. I'm like, yeah, you see my worth. You see the joy. Physical beauty is a dime a dozen. What they're seeing in me is how close to the surface my spirit is, how much of my true light is shining out of me, because all of those centers are activated, because my sexual energy is nourishing me. And it's up-leveled my business massively. It's up-leveled my finances massively. It's up-leveled my relationships massively. The clarity that I have, the way that I walk through the street, the way I carry myself in the world. Like when this happens with a woman, it is identifiable. You might not be able to put your finger on what it is, but you see it in the women who are carrying themselves with this energy, moving through them and expressing in its natural way.
And I know that you do also work with a lot of women who are single. We touched on this earlier. And the majority of the women that are going to be watching our session today are probably single. And so they're probably wondering, this all sounds great and I can't wait to get a partner, but...
Oh, my heart is just like pouring with energy right now, because I've been that woman. I have been in that window of such deep yearning, of feeling. It makes me emotional to think about it. It was such a hard time in my life. to want something so much and not find it, and to keep coming across men that are not good enough, who would let me down, who would make me feel like I was too much. You know, the question was always, I'm too much. Could I have been less sensitive, less emotional, less deep, less intense, less powerful? Could I have changed or modified myself somehow for someone to love me? Like, what do I have to do to find that thing? I feel the pain of that still, because I know that place. And on the other side of that is no more asking, am I too much? The question becomes, are you enough for me? I know my worth. I fulfill myself. I understand my body, my anatomy, my energy, my mind, and my heart. And I know how to utilize these things and treat myself in this way and give myself this thing that I've been seeking that fulfills me so fucking deeply that I don't have to be in lack anymore. And I can hold myself on my throne and wait for the right person to come to me. And I wait from that place of, I'm fulfilled, I'm happy. Of course, I still want. Of course, I still focus on my dream. I hold that knowing and that certainty that I yearn that deeply because I know this is for me. I'm this unsatisfied because I know somewhere deep in my heart and my soul, I am made for that kind of partnership I desire. And I'm going to work my little butt off to do my inner work until I can hold that frequency so certainly and with such contentment in my heart that I will never settle and I'll never concede and I will never allow someone access to me who doesn't fulfill me, who doesn't respect me, who doesn't love me. We have that power to give ourselves that. And then you open your eyes and you're looking at a brand new reality and what you attract to yourself and the quality of relationships that come in and the kind of magnetic information that you're transmitting into the world and the circumstances that attracts and the synchronicities that leads you to, like, everything's transforming because you're holding that energy within yourself. And again, once you get there, there's just no going back. It's a hard fucking battle, but I know that we're here and we're listening to this content because we have what it takes to do that. You know, I've been thinking just over the last 24 to 48 hours, every woman that I choose to have in my life strives to be her highest self all the time. Like, we all go through challenges. That's every single one of us struggles, but we do our work to keep working. And I don't find that so easy to find in men, that particular quality. As women in this world, in this way, and some of us have carried far heavier weights than others, but just as a woman growing up in a patriarchal world, we have had to work for anything that we have. But that almost imbues us with an inner strength and a willingness and a dedication to fucking work for what we want. And that to me is the most admirable quality. And I just fucking celebrate every woman who shows up here doing that kind of work, wanting that for themselves, willing to look at themselves, willing to do the healing, willing to keep fighting to not settle and not accept less for ourselves. Like, what a fucking gift. And not all men have that. That can leave us a little disheartened and saddened. But I tell you what, when you open your eyes in that new reality, there are the men that do that kind of work. They might not when we're sitting at those lower vibrations and we're accepting less for ourselves and we're letting them into our world and into our field and into our body, when we still have that feeling that this guy's not good enough, or he doesn't text me back, or I've got to question his reliability because I don't know if he's lying or if he's going to ghost me. But every time we say yes to that, we're keeping ourselves at that level. So if we can pull our energy back into ourselves, learn to fuck ourselves so well that we are so fulfilled and so we cherish ourselves and we love ourselves and we worship ourselves. Oh man, the men at the next level are just unicorns.
Mm-hmm.
And they're there.
I guess it's a common theme that weaves through for all of us in terms of this self-growth, self-development, personal work that we do, is understanding how much power we already have access to. And I love that you explained that. And
exactly.
even understanding for anyone who's done any research on ancient civilizations, and it kind of comes as a surprise to us that many of those ancient civilizations were actually ruled by the feminine and had much more feminine values. And I guess we're sort of starting to rediscover what that is and just exactly how much innate power we have. Linking that back to, I guess, the self-pleasure and how we as single women can really tap into this.
Absolutely.
Let's dive into that.
I love that the ancient cultures knew that the feminine was powerful. And it was so powerful that at some point the patriarchy takes over and it decides to squash the feminine power because that's going to be a threat to their power. So many of these things that are in our society and in our psyche, when it comes to our sexuality, is specifically designed to shut us down, to inhibit that power. So I survey all of the women that work with me at the beginning of our journey, at the middle, and at the end. That's for my information, but it's also for them to have these objective measurements to understand the very tangible results of doing this work. And so at the beginning, I ask them, how many orgasms do they likely have during sex? Some of them say none. The majority of them say one, and some of them will say more than one. Then I ask them, how many orgasms do they have when they masturbate? And the majority of them will say one, and some of them say two or more. So this idea that our sexuality involves one orgasm on average, when we hold the potential to be so orgasmic, to have 30 minutes of nonstop rolling orgasms, to have 30 orgasms in an hour, to be orgasmic for hours. And I'm not talking about sitting here, breathing, doing kundalini, strange sexual things. I mean, in the throes of lovemaking with a lover and in the throes of lovemaking with ourselves, in the same way that most of us are fucking ourselves now, not that different, but understanding things differently to say, if I've got all that power in me, why am I taking one drop of it? Like having those one singular orgasm, it's almost like hijacking or short circuiting our nervous system. It's like, okay, I'm going to go straight to the clit and I'm going to use a vibrator and I'm just, why do we go there in the first place? Let's have a look at that. Why do we tend to masturbate? There's so many reasons. It could be that we're horny and we need a release. It could be that we're bored. It could be that we're stressed. It could be that we are tired. It could be that something sparked our interest that day. Maybe we saw someone or saw some content that turned us on. Like we're there for numerous reasons, but often what happens is we're just looking for the quickest way to get to the goal. And so we don't have any sense of foreplay with ourselves. We just know what
really masculine, isn't it?
Yeah. Goal oriented, get it done, have my orgasm, fall asleep, have my orgasm, feel a little less stressed, have my orgasm, feel a little less horny, done. So that's totally fine. And I'm not judging anyone for that, but it is a massive injustice to our overall capacity. So I like to think of sex sometimes as a sport, as you know. And I was thinking about ice skating as a sport. And, all of us have probably gone ice skating, and most of us would probably get on our hired skates that don't fit all that well and get out and hold on the edge and kind of go around enough until we feel like, yep, I'm standing on my own and maybe I can do a few laps around unassisted. And that might be the extent of what we do with that sport. And when I look at the mainstream sexuality, that's kind of all we're doing. No one taught us how to do it. We never had lessons. We didn't have an education around it. We have no idea about our anatomy or how to get the maximum pleasure out of our anatomy. So we're just kind of like doing laps around the rink and everyone's like, oh, great. This is average. Let's do this 2.5 times a week and think that we're normal. But then we get other people who are like, I want to learn that sport. So I'm going to train and I'm going to get a coach and I'm going to learn skills. And I'm going to do things outside of the ice skating rink in order to improve my performance in the ice skating rink. And then we look at people who are in the Olympics who are doing gravity defying, unbelievable things with their body. Like essentially all of us can get to the point that we're an advanced ice skater if we wanted to, but not everyone wants to, and that's fine. So sexuality is the same. We can have this, very basic expression that gets us to our orgasm. Or we can say, I'm going to learn this as a skill. I'm going to come to understand it What do we need to know about ice skating? We need to know about the rink. We need to know about our body. We need to know about aerodynamics. We need to know about strength, velocity, speed, all these different kinds of things. So when it comes to our sexuality, it's the same. What can we learn? We can learn our energy and how to move energy in the body. We can learn our anatomy and how to use our anatomy differently. We can learn about the nervous system and how to increase the capacity of feeling and energy we can hold in our nervous system. I'm going to learn about the other person's anatomy if I'm having sex with the opposite gender. I can learn communication and consent and boundaries and all of these things. I can understand how my mind works and how to clear shame and how to resolve past negative experiences. Like, as you start to learn all of this stuff, your skills increase, your satisfaction increases, your results increase. And we go from having this, I'm going to hijack my body and my nervous system to get that one little drop, and I'm going to apply myself and go, holy moly, did you just see me do that flip and that jump and that thing on the ice, which I never in a million years thought that I could do. So it's really that simple. It doesn't have to be these crazy yogic, tantric, spiritual things. It doesn't have to be this crazy dungeon wearing the leathers and the whips and the chains. It might be. That'll probably astound some people that underneath there are those desires under layers and layers of shame. But my passion is to make it so real and tangible and possible for us to learn how to pleasure ourselves, that whole picture of pleasure, that whole picture of sexuality and sexual health. Because once we have empowered ourselves in that way and we have that key to unlock that inside of ourselves, then we never go back. We never settle. You never accept less for yourself. It's like, now I know what I'm doing. I'm not having some dude that doesn't text me back. I'm not giving it away to some guy that hasn't given me the time and energy that my body needs in order to get turned on. But hey, I didn't know how to get turned on. I didn't know how to get to that second orgasm. I didn't even know how to orgasm during sex anyway. You know, some people are lucky enough that they can, and they're naturally multi-orgasmic. But for most women, you have to learn that skill, just like any other skill of the physical body.
For anyone who's sitting there thinking, I just don't think I can, or it's for me.
I say the same thing that I would be saying to someone sitting on the side of the ice skating rink saying, I can't. And I've tried that once and I fell over straight away and I hurt myself and I can't. It's like, well, you actually have the capacity inside of you. All of us do. Yes, our anatomy is different to a certain degree. And at the end of the day, we're the same. We each have the same capacity inside of us. It's about having the right kind of tools to get you there. If you have a guide, if you decide to get an ice skating lesson, you're going to walk off that rink very differently from 1 hour of ice skating than if you don't have a lesson. So you could read a book about it and that might help you. It's still going to be very different to have someone that's right by your side that says, let me help you understand yourself. Let me show you some techniques. Now, I don't show people graphically techniques. I help them understand their body in a way that still respects their privacy, that's not confronting. It can be confronting in the fact that I'm quite shameless in the way that I share, and I'll say things that society has told us we don't talk about that publicly. Like, don't tell everyone that you love anal sex, Erin. It's not okay. The world has robbed us of using language around it. So what I say can be confronting because it's unfamiliar, but it's not designed to be disrespectful or to be shocking. It's actually just being really real and honest. So having someone who's walked the path before you, who has learned to overcome being a sexually shut down woman, who has learned to go from those states of, like, I still have moments every now and then when I can't get myself to come. Like, I know myself well now and I know what it takes in the lead up to get there and how I can start to activate and work myself and my mind and my heart and my body to get myself into very orgasmic states. But I still have moments where I'm like, it's not happening for me today. Like, it's very natural that happens. It's a complex thing. So if someone hasn't got there yet, it's because someone hasn't given you a roadmap that says, this is you as a unique individual. Let me help you come to know yourself so that you know your pathway, because giving one map to every woman on this planet is not going to work. The one map doesn't work. We need a different map for every woman, because we are different and our minds are different and our hearts are different. Our bodies are different. Our experiences are different. Our eroticism and the things, we don't know where our eroticism comes from as we're developing and growing. You might see direct links between experiences that you had and desires or fantasies that you have now. You might not see that at all. It's a very complex thing. So it just is what it is. Once there is someone there helping you as an individual find your pathway, doors open that you couldn't have imagined, that you could never have found on your own, because no one taught us this. We were so robbed of no one taught us how to fuck. That's so crazy. Like when I think back to my experience, and high school had just finished and I had my high school boyfriend, and I thought, okay, this is the moment. This is it. I'm going to do this thing, even though I would have been considered frigid. I don't like that word, but like I didn't kiss anyone till really late. I was like really uncomfortable. And I was like, this is the moment. And it was just two people fumbling, hoping to do the right thing. And I remember thinking, was that it? Was that it? Like, that's where my sexual education came from. And then you have another partner, and maybe for me, he had more experience. So I was like, whoa, what is he doing to me now? Wow, where's he putting my body? Whoa, 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 what is this? But still, it wasn't a teaching necessarily. It was an experience that was helpful. But you just kind of move through your partners like that. Like each of us may be educating the other one about a little bit more or helping to understand, but still typically we didn't talk about it. We didn't ask to be taught their body. We don't know how to teach them about our body still, because we don't know our potential. So again, it's just the blind leading the blind, and no one taught us. So again, what could we do? Go and read a book. Great. That's still not going to make us an Olympic level ice skater by reading a book. To have a guide and to have a coach and to have someone like a mentor that really knows these things is just a completely different game. So that's really what I do for women, is I help them understand themselves as a unique individual, help them understand and come into contact with their sexuality in their own unique way. And then I empower them to express that in the world, to give them that sense of acceptance and understanding, and realize that they are normal and there is nothing wrong with them. And actually, when they come in contact with that part of themselves, there was always a knowing that that was who they were. They knew that somewhere along the line. It's just that it never got expressed, or it got shut down, or it got hurt, or it got violated, or it got shamed. And then we get these messages that we shouldn't be that way, or we should be this. And we just journey so far from ourselves. But as I lead women back to that truth of their own unique, authentic sexual expression, it's just like, oh, this is who I always was. I knew this.
For many of the women that are listening again, though, that are single and are on that journey, in what ways does actually feeling that, connecting to that truth and feeling self-expressed and mastering this skill as a single potentially impact our ability to be able to attract and manifest a partner, do you think?
I think it is the key. I think it is the very key. I feel so passionately about it, Peter. So many women in my life are like, oh, I haven't had dick since July. So they go onto Tinder and they accept less for themselves because they're seeking something outside of themselves. So let's think about the partnered circumstance for a moment. The only way that your relationship is going to improve is if the two individuals in that relationship improve themselves. That's what changes the relationship. The relationship doesn't change. You have to change you and the way that you show up and the way that you relate. And then that's when the relationship changes. So that principle is relevant whether you're single or whether you're in a relationship. It's you that changes. And when you change, then the results around you change. So if we're sitting back waiting, okay, I just want a partner to fuck me like that, or I want a man to worship my body, or I want to feel, adored, and I want someone to bring me all that pleasure. The science behind it is the law of attraction. When you're operating in that frequency, you attract that experience. That's science again. So if we can learn how to hold that energy within ourselves and unlock ourselves in that way, then that becomes a vibrational match for the person that can meet you like that. To love ourselves in this way through our pleasure and our sexuality is a massive act of self-love and self-worth. It's because I'm worthy of that, because I deserve that kind of pleasure in my life. I deserve that kind of satisfaction and fulfillment and the overflowing energy that comes from it to experience my own power. That puts us in such a different reality that then attracts They're the men that don't call you back, that just want to fuck you and leave, that resist wearing a condom, like all those toxic dating behaviors, those kind of men don't come anywhere fucking near you when you're radiating like this. They don't realize it necessarily on a conscious level, but something inside of them is being repulsed away from a woman like you because they know they've got no fucking chance. They've got no fucking chance to treat a woman like that in that toxic kind of way. They become a vibrational match for that place that I've been in myself and many women still are in, which is I feel lack, I feel neediness, I feel a lack of self-worth, and I'm looking for validation, and I'd rather take that one drop of attention, even if it means I'm going to get treated poorly, or I'm going to get left hurt again, or he's not going to call me back. Like, that's the vibrational match for those toxic men and that toxic dating behavior. So once you start turning on all those fucking bright lights and radiating your glorious feminine energy in the world in such an empowered way, like a queen, the men that look at that, the men that want to move towards that, hold the same level of self-respect for themselves and the same level of self-love. And they don't want the woman who's feeling needy and desperate and hoping, and like, that's where their repulsion lies. And I don't say repulsion in a judgmental way. I'm saying it in a scientific, objective way, like the match of energy from self-worth to self-worth. So what is the relationship that we want, and what kind of man do we want to attract? We put ourselves there by being that counterpart. We want a king, then we be the queen. And the queen sits on her throne, and she doesn't run out into the kingdom trying to find any man to come back and meet her in the castle. She doesn't get off her throne. She sits there and says, yes, you may prove yourself to me. You may offer yourself to me and show me that you're the kind of man that is worthy of a woman like me. And yes, you have to go out and slay that dragon. You have to show me your integrity. You have to prove to me with your actions that you're a man of your word. You have to show me and express your values as a family man or as a businessman or as a partner. And I'm sitting here on my throne. And when I see that you are my match like that, then yes, I offer you my heart. I offer you my body. I offer you my love. But I'm sitting here and I'm waiting. Like, you can see that queen and all the men that are like the knights in their shining armor wanting to prove for her. She doesn't, oh, let me help you. Let me save you. Maybe I can change you and then you'll be the one for me. Like, I've been that rescuer. That is me to my core.
We're often so worried about whether he's going to be interested in us, whether we can be validated, whether we're so worried about our man's opinion of us and being chosen or being accepted by him that we often overlook that beautiful queenly power of being able to say, but wait, I'm going to take my time and make sure that you also meet me where I'm at and meet my requirements. So I love that you validate that.
Yes, we've been fed that lie as well. The scarcity, the competitiveness, that we have to fight against each other and we've got to step over each other and cut other women down in order to get, like, we're just scrambling at each other, you know, fighting for the final morsel. Like, that's all a fucking illusion that we've been fed. But when you believe that, that is your reality. And I've been in that place too, where it feels like lack and it feels like there's no options and it feels like it's not possibly going to happen for you and time is running out. And like, that's a scary fucking place to be in, especially if you have any kind of inclination to have children. There's just this desperation inside of us, like, please, I've got to find that final morsel. I'll take anything rather than go without, because my dreams, my future, my chance to be a mother. I understand that reality and I've been there and I know how real it feels. And you cannot deny it when you're in that is so real. But what I want to say is that is not the only reality. That is not the only way. And when you can find your pathway to this place of power, the universe flips on its head and it becomes so clearly the opposite of, like, do you know how lucky you are? I'm the morsel now. I am that rare drop of woman that you have been seeking so long for. And I don't give that away lightly. I recognize, I'm getting full body goosebumps. Like, men are so fucking lucky to have women like us who have great integrity, who are women of our word, who will love and devote ourselves to the right person to to create something so powerful together that we're both better for it in life, that we build a relationship together that nourishes us both and supports us both to be the greatest expressions of who we are in the world. Like, the world is better off for having us together, because that third energy that's created, that is us, has its purpose in the world. Like, that is a precious, 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 rare fucking thing. And we forget, because the world has said, no, forget that, girls. Shut that down. Let's teach you competitiveness. Let's teach you lack. And we forget that we are the most precious, amazing, glorious jewel of feminine being. And when you remember that again, when you have reclaimed that back to yourself, because you are loving yourself and holding yourself in that kind of worth, and you are pleasuring yourself, you're fucking yourself that well, you feel $1 million fucking dollars every day, then the tables have turned. Then the men that are up there at that frequency that have been looking for us, like, where are the good women? Where are the women with deep, loving, compassionate hearts? Where are the women who are not toxic or bitchy or shaming me or hurting me? Like, they're seeking us just like we're seeking them. And we've forgotten that. And it's time to remember and take our place back on our throne. Some aspects of sexuality that have more societal shame around them that we're less comfortable with. And I know that masturbation is one of those. We don't often sit with our girlfriends and say, how did you fuck yourself? How many orgasms did you have? What are your toys? How did you do it? The conversation is becoming more commonplace now, but in general, women don't talk like that with their girlfriends. So I want to respect that, and I want to make it easy for people to start that journey of learning and understanding in their own privacy, in their own world. It doesn't have to be in a group. No one has to know that you're doing it. Your Facebook profile, your name doesn't have to be anywhere. It's just a opportunity for you to come and learn from me in a way that's private. And that gives you your first steps into this journey. There's so much truth in this work, and there's so much power in this work. And for many of us, there are so many obstacles to get there. So my deepest intention with creating this course is that it minimizes those obstacles, and that you could listen to a conversation like this and feel like, yeah, do you know what? I'll give it a shot. I'm going to try that. I'm going to learn something about myself. I'm going to start that work. That work is big. It's rewarding as fuck. It's scary. But there becomes a point where we can't deny it anymore. That's our natural life force, and nature has its own way, and you can deny it, and you can deny it. And then one day there comes a point where you're like, okay, I'm going to fucking do it. I'm scared. I'm uncertain, but I'm willing to start. And that's what this course is. It's that way for you to start, where you don't have to change who you are. You don't have to go to Bali and come on a tantra retreat. You don't have to go into the dungeon. You don't have to do any of that. It's an opportunity for you in the privacy of your own home to start to understand your anatomy, to understand technique, to understand your mind and your heart, which are massive gateways to our sexuality. I watched a video on YouTube, and it was how to finger a pussy. And I thought, wow, this video has had nearly 1 million views. And it's relevant information. I'm not going to deny that. It was a woman with this like stuffed vagina as a demonstration, and she was talking about the anatomy, and she was telling you different techniques. And I thought, 1 million people have watched this. How many of those 1 million people became a better lover? I don't know that many. There's so much more to it than just technique. Technique is a necessary component, but oh my God, there is just so much more to that. If she had a technique that was like called the clit clock, and you run your finger in little circles in different parts around the clit itself. And I thought, if someone just comes at me with that move, without knowing that my mind is aroused and I'm open and my heart is open and I'm feeling respected and I'm feeling seen and all these other precursors to our sexuality, the clit clock is not going to do anything. It's just someone doing something weird between my legs that I really don't. What shit? Like, you can ask your lover, which hour around the clock face did you like best? And then I can rub your clit in that one particular spot. I was like, fuck, it's just an incomplete picture of what our sexuality is. So as a course helps us understand that complete picture of sexuality, which is so inclusive of so many areas of our life, so many areas. It's the relationship we have with our body. It's actually the relationship we have with our diet. People don't think about that the food that I'm putting in my body today is going to directly impact my sexuality. But do you think that the Olympic ice skater thinks long and hard about what kind of food they need for what they're doing? Absolutely. If you have a bloated belly and you're constipated, are you going to feel pleasure in your body in the same kind of way? If you've drunk a lot of alcohol and you're feeling hungover and groggy, or if you've been eating a lot of dairy and your body doesn't handle dairy very well and you've got all this mucus, that's going to directly impact your sexual satisfaction. But we don't make these kind of links. We don't think about our sexual health, including our diet. So you understand that entire holistic picture and then help you come to understand yourself as an individual. And I hope result in hundreds and thousands and millions of orgasming women all over the planet. That is my intention. Let's get women masturbating everywhere. Let's have these deeply satisfied, fulfilled, radiant women walking through the streets, just glowing, and people say, I want what she's having.
You can literally see how sexually expressed, how sexually satisfied someone is by, as we talked about, by their complexion, by the way they hold themselves. They just have this air of calm, confidence. What would you call it?
Yeah, well, to me, it's empowerment. It's a sense of personal power, of ownership, that personal power is actually coming from within us and radiating outwards, rather than what a lot of us are doing, which we're looking for that thing outside of us to fulfill us, to make us feel better. So when we've got that kind of energy going where we're looking to be filled or we're seeking outside of ourselves, that's very different from the woman that's radiating it outwards, that's so fulfilled. And she's the one that walks around with a crown on her head and has a beautiful throne and treats herself as such. And that is a super sexy thing. There is a very tangible feeling and energy and image that's radiating off a woman who's truly in her sexual power, that cannot be faked, that cannot be forced, even though if they could bottle that up and sell it, it would be the biggest commercial industry on the planet. But it's something that cannot be faked. You can fake an orgasm. You cannot fake that.
I have one final question for you, Erin.
Yes, my darling.
Let's just assume as single women, we're all feeling more sexual. We're all feeling more comfortable with our sexuality. We're feeling more sexually expressed. And we've already talked about the fact that when we're in our power in that way, the kind of men that we're connecting with and calling in and magnetizing changes. I'm still imagining there's still a little bit of uncertainty or a gray area about how we navigate our singledom.
Yes.
Feeling sexually confident.
Yes.
Do you have any advice, I guess is what I'm asking about how we know when to actually have those kinds of sexual experiences, when to share ourselves with a man while we're increasing our sexual energy and our sexual confidence, but we're still single because we might have had a lot of bad experiences about getting connected or falling in love or developing kind of intimate bonds with men before we were ready. And it's still, I know for a lot of women, a kind of a gray area, like when do I have sex with him or not? And how do I know if he's the right person to have this experience with?
That's such a great question. And it really just comes down to our personal standards and getting very, very clear on what are my standards? What are my values? What are my not negotiables? And what are my preferences? And when I'm really clear on that, and I tell you what, that's going to up level and that's going to up level and it's going to up level. You think that you know what your standards are and you'll have an experience with someone who is like that. And you might discover, actually, holy crap, I want more. That wasn't okay for me. I'm now going to modify my list. I'm going to get clearer. So I would recommend having this list when it comes to dating, to go into dating with a really clear idea of what are the qualities that are not negotiables for me? What are the things that I have preferences around, but I can be lenient? You want to make sure that you're living up to the standard of your own values, that you're living in integrity with what you want, because that is going to be the place where it becomes so crystal clear that someone's not in alignment with that. If you're uncertain inside of yourself, if you don't want to give yourself away to men like that anymore, but you keep doing it, and you know that you're in that place where you're in and you're out and it feels bad, but I keep going back and keep learning the same lesson, you're not going to be able to identify where someone else is at because you're not in integrity with yourself. So getting clear on what is it that you're looking for in a sexual partner, that's going to be different for all of us. It might have to do with how many other sexual partners that they currently have. Some people might not want them to have other sexual partners. It might have to do with how sex positive they are, like how comfortably they can express their own sexual boundaries and their limits and their desires, and whether they have consent conversations. There can be all of these things that are indicative of that's the kind of partner that I want. So once you understand that and you work out where am I at and what do I want for myself, these ones I'm not budging on. It is so important to me that they meet these standards. These ones, I've got some, like for me, I don't like men that watch televised sport, and I don't like men that play computer games. Like that is just so far from my reality. My preference is that they're not men that do that. If I've met a guy that ticks all my non-negotiables and is actually like has great integrity and has great family values and has a very deep, compassionate heart and has amazing emotional intelligence and has great communication, and he likes computer games, I'm not going to say no to that, you know, but they're my preferences. And of course, having preferences and standards. So once you are clear on that within yourself, once you're living in alignment with your own values as well, it becomes so evident. It's just so clear straight away. So when we have that inside of ourselves, we can make those discernments and those choices, and the rewards come in like that. It's when we're uncertain and we're unclear and we sacrifice and we give ourselves away that we stay in that place, and we can stay in that place for a long time. But the more clarity you have around what you want, the more clarity you have around your standards, and be open to getting it wrong. Be open to the fact that you might go on a date and say yes to someone who in the end actually doesn't get there, but you've learned something. You can clarify your list now. You know what to look for now. It's kind of like a game of guess who. You know, we have to go and, does he have glasses? And you eliminate some of the board, and then you have another experience. You're like, nope, no beers. And you keep eliminating until you get so crystal clear on the qualities that you want. And there's one standing face on that board, and you meet that person. But we have to have some experiences of what we don't want. So there's no judgment, you know, recognize that it's part of the lesson, it's part of the learning, it's part of the growth. We have to have those experiences to get clearer and clearer. But write a list of your standards, your not negotiables, and your preferences, your values. Get to know yourself that well so you know what's compatible with you or not, and hold that list so tightly in your hands and know that the universe is going to reward you. The universe is going to reward you. The love that you seek is waiting for you. I feel so, oh my God, I just feel so much in my heart about that for every woman that loses that hope and that faith, because I know what it's like. I have been there, and I just don't believe that we are the women that we are, with this desire and this impulse inside of us to be here and listen to this kind of content and do this work on ourselves to not be rewarded. The reason our soul gave us this yearning is to give us the strength to overcome the test, to get the great reward. The harder the test, the bigger the reward. And we're in that boat. We're not choosing the easy path. And that's because the reward that is waiting for us is not fucking easy. It's awesome.
I absolutely adore the passion that you share this with, Erin, and being such a beacon as well, and holding us all to that same degree of like hope and expectation and standards for ourselves.
Certainty. Yes, with certainty of what is for us. I know what's for us. I know it.
Absolutely amazing. Can you share, we are going to provide even more of an experience of you through an audio recording, and also down below the video today there is all the information about Erin, everything you'd like to know about her, and obviously how you can connect with her programs, her social media handles. tell us a little bit about the audio experience that we have for the girls today.
Oh, yes. I have a very sexy meditation, self-worship meditation, because worship is really what it's about, that we fucking worship ourselves as queens that we are. So this is a guided meditation for you to drop into that space and start to connect with yourself in that way and start to feel that energy. And then, you know, you can listen to that meditation as many times as you like. And then one day you're going to have your own little groove. You're going to have that neural pathway unlocked inside of you, how to tap into that energy of worship all the time and how to unlock that energy and that pleasure in your body.
Beautiful. I can already hear the sounds of laptops closing as all the girls are racing off. Thank you everyone for joining us today. It's been such an amazing conversation, and thank you, Erin, for being part of our summit this year. Look forward to seeing you all again tomorrow, girls. Bye.
Bye.